a gallery. I went to that little gallery in Frodsham at the weekend, and there was some lovely paintings, watercolor paintings and mixed media by a guy called John Clayton.
John Payton.
John Clayton.
Clayton.
Yeah, really lovely stuff. Really nice.
I will have a look. He must have a website somewhere.
Yes.
Yeah, to look at his work.
Yeah, it's up a sheet, but it hasn't got its website on it.
Oh, okay. Morning talk.
Morning.
I'm on a new machine this morning, which I stayed up till about 4:30 trying to figure out. It's a Mac, so it's not a PC. I'm not quite sure where all the buttons are. So there's a potential for the meeting to go a bit skew. It's promised it's recording at the moment. If it does, I'll go back to the other laptop. But the reason I'm using this one was because the sound wasn't good enough on the other one. So I think I figured out Zoom. I think I figured out YouTube. I think I figured out various things on this. But expect the odd technical problem, and then we'll see where we go from here. Hi, Denise. Does it sound different from your end?
No, it's very clear.
It's very clear. That's good.
Everything's all right. Yes, very clear.
I know the other one used to do a kind of purring sound, which got in the way a little bit. But I recorded an interview with Elsa on the phone, and the sound on YouTube just wasn't loud enough to play it back for you. So I thought I've got no choice but to learn how to use the new thing.
Is that for next week?
No, I'm actually using it now. So I'll show you that video now. So yeah, I had the session planned, and then it was only when I went to check the sound last night I thought, okay, the usual laptop isn't going to work, so I'm going to have to figure out how to use this. And then suddenly it was very, very late, and I wasn't. I think I've got it. I mean, if it wasn't for that, I would have just. This would have stayed in the cupboard, and I wouldn't have got round to trying to figure out how to use it. And it's such a good machine; it would have been a shame not to.
Yeah.
And it's about a third of the weight of the old laptop, so it feels like it's a weird little thing. But it seems to work anyway. The camera looks good on it. So I know Leslie's away and Pat can't make it, and Rod's message say he can't make it. So I'm not sure how many we're going to get this one.
Lillian's away as well.
Yeah, so that's.
And don't know whether Pauline would join. I don't know, because she got grandchildren.
Yeah.
I don't know whether she'll join a bit later. I have no idea.
Yeah. I was thinking Pauline might be it because she was back on the group after missing the seminar. But,
yeah.
Well, it might be a blessing if we've only got a couple of us this morning, just in case it does go wrong.
No, it should be all right.
Okay, yeah. It's so, I don't know whether you've had that difference between Mac and PC where everything is just a little bit not quite where you expect it to be, and it kept saying things like when YouTube wasn't working, it kept saying things like about changing settings, and the typeface on it is so small. I kept taking the glasses off and going right up to things. I can't read it. It's like so that's one thing I've got to figure out how to increase the type size on it because my eyesight isn't good enough. Okay, well, should we get stuck in then?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, it's only 4 minutes past, but we might still get another one. So I thought to round up the abstraction project, I'd talk to a proper abstract painter because I'm not one. I'm a sculptor and a printmaker, and I don't. When I paint, I tend to paint in quite a figural way. So it's I very much appreciate abstract painting, but I can't do it. Yeah. So I thought I'd talk to someone who did. So it wants me to sign in for everything. I've already told it I don't want a password.
Actually, I had that this morning. It was asking me to sign in. I've never had that one. And I've no idea what my password is.
Right, can you see my screen?
Yes, we can.
Well, that's a good start. So
But
there we go.
you just need to increase your YouTube window.
Yeah, I'm scared to click on the wrong thing. Okay, well that's and things popping up in front.
That's fine.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's it.
So if once we've done this, if it doesn't quite work, I'll go back to the other machine. So if I kind of if I disappear for a minute, give me a minute and I'll log back in on the other one.
I think it should be okay.
It actually because the battery had been on a long time, it did pick me off yesterday, part way through doing something. So it just kind of all switched off and everything. But the battery's lit green at the moment, so it should be okay. And it's I left it charging all night. So so I went over to Elsa's and and I said, I'm going to interview you about your work. And she suddenly wasn't confident to talk about work. I think her work is amazing. And so I asked her some questions in the way I would if I was interviewing Jackson Pollock or Mark Rothko. And you can see one of her paintings there behind her. And Elsa's flat is actually an amazing piece of art in itself. So once we've heard our answers to the question, I'm going to show you some of the work as well. To interview one of Liverpool's premier. Okay, so right, I know, and it was. So I'm here today to interview one of Liverpool's premier abstract painters, one of my favourite painters, the wonderful Elsa, who most of you know. You've made some amazing paintings, and I'm going to show a slideshow for our artists to have a look at them. I just wanted to talk to you a little bit about that today. So, why paint and not drawing or not photography or is it part of something wider?
For me, it's simply putting down colour, and paint is the biggest range I can get, really.
Yeah.
So I often work in fabrics as well, but obviously I love to paint just for that reason, to put blocks of colour next to each other.
Yeah. So your sense of colour was always stronger than mine, and you went towards design, whereas I went towards fine art.
Mm.
You use your sketchbooks in a different way to the way I use mine. You often make lots of proposals and lots of ideas.
Yeah, I do try and say from every angle, or so as many possibilities, just so I can choose. I do. There is a process, thought.
Yeah.
I think
so the design process, in fact.
Yeah. There's I'm always thinking of measurements and balance. Yeah. Even within colours in a painting, I'll often pick up on a colour and just put it somewhere else in
so
a painting.
Tying the paint together.
Yeah. So a composition might be right off, but that little bit of red might be reflected in another part of the painting, or just play, basically play with colour. That's what I like to do.
Do you ever use kind of colour theory, like the colour wheel, or so you decide when you put a colour down? Do you think the other colour has got to be the opposite?
Yeah,
to
I
it,
want something in contrast, or I want a harmony, or I want this whole palette of the piece of work to be saturated, or to be really deep colours, or I might just do something that's all pastels and then just throw black at it. Okay. So again, but it's all very experimental. I don't really know what I'm going to do until I'm doing it.
Oh, very Picasso, yeah. So he said, if you know what you're going to do before you've done it, what's the point in doing it?
Yeah, okay.
So he thought about making art to explore an idea. So
when you say you make a painting, do you have a kind of end point where you know it's finished? But how do you know when it's finished? And I'm
Basically,
talking to your abstract stuff. So.
well, basically when I when it looks right, that's the wrong answer, isn't
No,
it?
it's the right answer. But how do we know when it looks right? Is it an emotional response to it, or is it a balance?
I think it is a balance, an emotional balance. So I feel like if what I've strived for is different textures all over a piece, you know, I want that. If I want contrast in a piece, have I got enough contrast? Or have I got enough beads on it? Or you know, there just comes a feeling, doesn't there, when you know. I mean, I have overworked things.
And you can't step back when it's digital. You can't.
Well, this is why I like to I do like to take photographs of my work in development. So if you do something and you go,
just stop you there. See.
So,
I keep saying this. Sorry.
So once I've overworked it and I've cocked it up, I can go, but it was perfect then. So let's try next one.
Yeah.
You know?
So there's a process of analysis, isn't there, where you can see that was the right stage, even if it goes wrong after that.
Yeah, but I don't like being precious. I mean, even that table that's really bright in front of us, I'm planning to just pour white paint on that.
Yeah.
Because it's at its time. I'm looking for the next.
For the next thing.
The next thing.
Yeah. So you mentioned that embellishments like beads, and I know that one of the ones I'm going to show is it's got gold leaf or copper leaf on it as well. So does this sense of embellishment come from your practice in textiles?
Yeah.
Is that,
Yeah.
So how does textile and paint, how are they related?
So much for me. So I love to put things in me paint to get a print into it and stuff like that.
Like you would with corduroy or something?
Oh, totally, hot water bottles, corduroy, roll and string, screwed up bin bags. It's one of my favourite things to just experiment with mark making. Yeah. Just like mark making is everything. And trying to reproduce that mark in a piece of work, you know, so mine's done very simply. So mine could be a load of samples put together in a way, but that makes it the body of one piece of work. So it's like collections of things.
So collections then, and I'll show some of you the way you think about collections as well. That's an important starting point, isn't it, to collect information together.
Totally, yeah.
And I know you do that with your Instagram photography, and you do that with with your interior decor, because that's one of your strengths as well. You're collecting things together that work in the way you collect colours together that work.
Fabrics that work together.
Fabrics that work,
or things that don't work together. Equally.
So deliberately jarring things? Or,
deliberately jarring is great.
Okay,
I do like that as well.
I love it,
I love mixed media. I love putting fabric next to paint with beads, or you know, I think textiles taught me to explore that a lot. Yeah. And textiles isn't just fabric. Textiles can be paper. It can be so much more than what people think. Yeah.
So yeah, excellent. Yeah. And that's, maybe we could look more at that this year. We could do some textile workshops, because I think people will be interested in seeing how that relates to painting. I know some of our, like Sue and Pat and various artists who work with us already are textile artists as well as painters, so that would be a good thing to push forward. So just to close up then, when you look at the work of other artists, how you're influenced by, I know you like Clay and Kandinsky and Hundertwasser, and there's a set of artists who make sense to you. Yeah. Do you go looking for more artists, or do you take on board ideas from other artists, or is research part of it?
Research is very broad though, isn't it? Research from other artists, I think you're constantly influenced by just finding more artists, and it's okay to be influenced by them.
Yeah, totally. So that's the design cycle as well, isn't it? If you're thinking about sketchbook practice, you're looking at artists, you're thinking about influences, you're doing samples, experiments, you're researching what works, what doesn't work, and then you're putting together and you're finding the point where it finishes. Yeah. And you say, that's how I know it's finished. Actually, it's done. Yeah. Okay. Thank you for giving your afternoon up to talk to a passing monster.
Can I just say one of the things I remember from art college was we had to make a textured surface and put a paint on it.
Yeah.
And I think that the textures I put down on my canvas were like big cobs of foam and polystyrene and a bit of rope. It was all like really like rough. And you know what? I wish I had that painting now. And it was Colin Beckett who made us do it.
Yeah.
And I think it was one of the most influential pieces of work that I've done.
Yeah.
And it was to do with mixing painting and texture.
Yeah.
And it was totally, it wasn't a flat painting at all. And I think it was my first introduction of, wow, you can do that.
Yeah. So the
You're
permission to
allowed.
play,
Yeah, the permission to play. Totally,
which is what I think what you're all about. Yeah. So,
oh, thanks.
So this is Elsa, is one of our excellent tutors, and we'll be looking at some more workshops that Elsa can lead next year as well. Okay.
Bye.
Okay, so I presume you could see that relatively well from your side, and you could hear what she was saying.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
Does it make sense? Do you think? I mean, it's touched on a lot of things that we've already talked about, like the design cycle. He's obviously a professional designer, and I think
It's experimenting, isn't it? Logging different ideas all the time, and
yeah, logging is
typing.
yeah. You kind of keep logging is a great word for it. I look back at some of the drawings I did on my foundation when I first knew Elsa, and I'm looking back at sketchbooks that are 30 years old, and at the time I'm absolutely convinced that I'm going to be able to know how I did those things, thinking that it's because it's fresh in my mind then, it's going to be fresh in my mind when I come to look back in it. Probably not even imagining that I'll still be alive in 30 years time. And then I'm looking back at the sketchbooks thinking, I can't remember how I did that. I wish I knew how I did it because I'd do it again. Yeah. So yeah, logging is a great word because it's a kind of record of your discoveries, if you will, and that can lead it in any day. That could be, portrait painting or landscape or abstraction or any of the other design process like fashion design or whatever. So logging is a great description of it. So I thought I'd show you, some of the actual work. So that was the theory behind it. That was what she was saying.
Yes. I don't know how she keep her house very tidy when she's still collecting so many things,
Oh, which is fantastic. And she actually only moved into it about a year and a half ago.
I can't hear you now.
You can't hear me now.
Yeah, that's it.
Oh, that's a bit weird, isn't it? So something happened there. Yeah, the house is fantastic. You wouldn't imagine that she'd only moved into it about a year and a half ago because it looks like somewhere an artist has always lived. So I'm going to try screen sharing again and show you the slides this time. Okay, so we can see that, yeah?
Yes.
Yeah.
So this is not a kind of a set of work that I've been recording for a long time. This is actually just some of the work that's in Elsa's flat at the moment. So.
And would that be in gouache or?
That's in acrylic, and I think probably household paints as well. She'll often use like emulsion or or different types of paints as well. But this is probably about 1.5 meters long by about 1 meter tall. So these are
Oh,
quite big.
huge, huge.
Yeah,
Yes.
yeah. And we can see she has this interest in pattern and repetition, which is something that doesn't happen in my work at all. Pattern that, you know, of the formal elements that we mentioned when we analyze work, pattern doesn't crop up in my stuff at all. And also, you know, I had to mention that Elsa's sense of color is much stronger than mine, and I don't understand color in the way she does. So if you just cast your eye over this, there's so many harmonies that kind of balance together, or colors which are opposite to each other on the color wheel but sit next to each other on the canvas. So it's a really high level set of color choices that is, it kind of has me in awe, really. There's no way I could have achieved this. One of the shapes, that these kind of squares and rectangles crop up a lot in Elsa's work. Do they remind you of anything in particular? Or?
You mean as in an object, or is
Yeah,
it or as a
usually
Yeah, like houses and doors, yeah, windows.
windows. Yeah, see, I always think one of the artists Elsa is, you know, really looked at when she was younger was Hundertwasser, and Hundertwasser was a painter but also an architect, and he made sets of really weird buildings, but buildings nonetheless. You know, and he was one of the first artists who had seen me use grass roofs, so as the buildings couldn't be seen from above, so they were kind of like hills. But when you see, for me, when you see sets of squares in relationship to each other, it's kind of like being in the city somehow. And the fact that they in turn are inside other squares suggests different buildings or different spaces to look through. Although one of the things with abstract paint, particularly abstract expressionism, is that we think about the flatness of the surface. So these are all kind of arranged next to each other, but arranged in a way which speaks about them being on the same level visually. So this is another one. This is very large scale. So these dominate a whole wall when they go up. So there is a sense almost like when she's putting work up, it allows the space to become a gallery. We're talking about things being pressed in. Now I'm not sure what's been pressed in there, or whether that's brush marks there, but I know that one is that one was a panel of brown paint about the size of maybe an A5 envelope, and on the surface of it, when the paint was wet, she'd scrunched up plastic bags and pushed them into them, so the recorded surfaces, which really is a printmaking technique. But you can see why there's a sense that these might also be not just windows, but maybe fabric patches stitched together. So there's like a link to quilting and fabric making again.
Yeah, that looks more fabric and mats, yeah.
Talk. I wonder what she'd used for that orange one that's sort of the second row down and second from the right.
Yeah.
Like a brick design. No, up at near the top, second row down. Yeah. I wonder what she used there, because I could do with that. I need that for a painting.
I'm sure this is the wonderful thing about interviewing Elsa rather than interviewing Jackson Pollock, is that we can actually ask her. Yeah, that is really interesting. Isn't it?
You could send her a message, Lynn, on she's
Yes.
on.
Yeah. Find the right square.
Yeah, you'd have to because I'll share this. You'd have to grab that, crop it, and put a circle around and say this one.
Mhm.
There's a lot of I often think of, in Elsa's sense of color, there's often these kind of autumnal colors. So we often get browns and yellows and oranges, and but balance. I mean, that flash of pink there reminds me of those licorice all sorts.
Oh yeah.
So there's you can. I think with work like this, you can sit with it for a long time and just let your eyes wander around it and just find um, emotion in it, find things that remind you of, find things that you kind of have memory associations with, or textual associations with, or even scale. You know, like this. We see this big blue one, and these two small ones appear to be on top of it. And then we see this tiny little orange one. So there's relationships not just in color but in scale, and they're almost like dry stone wall, you know, the way they fit together.
Yeah.
This is one of the ones I mentioned about embellishment, you know, which is very much a textile process. But uh, although I tend to think of those, just you know, to go back to those kind of autumnal colors, um, these are in a different room, and these are obviously much cooler colors, but with flashes of brilliant copper leaf over them, functioning the same size as you know as the squares, but feeling much closer to the surface, something to do with the material that they're in, as opposed to the mattness of the paint. But we also start to see these kind of waves happening. So it's not just squares, you know, but that's in fact, it's not just squares. It's more to do for me with collections of things, and you'll see that because I put some examples of that in. So these are printmakers' drawers, and the printmaker print what do you call it, letter setting. They had metal letters, so you kind of make typeface by setting the letters together, and the letters would live so you could find them in these printmaking drawers. And so these are 3 of them wall mounted, and instead of letters, obviously they've got little objects in, and often the objects are like this little Lego man are associated with memory. So I think that was a son Ben's when he was very little, and often it's to do with, you know, kind of a day out on the beach, might find a bone, or might find a, you know, there's a key to something that we're not quite sure what it's for. So these are accessible in different ways, but you can see that they're actually very like the paintings, because they're all about, you know, as like 3 sets of kind of 50 different textures and different samples, and related shapes and colors, but all of them to do with trigger and memory.
Really interesting.
Yeah.
Yeah, they're like a kind of almost like a diary of years, which is also what I should have got was there's a set of on one wall there's a set of test tubes, and the test tubes are in the science rack, wall mounted. And she asks each of her friends to put something in a test tube to remind her of them.
Oh,
Some people have got, like, you know, I've got a test tube in the rack, and people have got like a daughter does a lot of climbing, so a daughter's one was full of climbing chalk that you'd use to make your hands more grippy. And one of our other friends filled us up with ink because he's an illustrator. Um, there's ones with hair in them. There's ones with my partner Kev had put red wine, I think, in his one. So each test tube is almost like a kind of collection like these, but like a chosen DNA of each person, as if you could just kind of, you know, like identify the person by what was in the tube. So collections are a really important thing for Elsa, and you can see when you compare it to the painting, you can see how things, one thing influences another thing. So, you know, just to go back to that idea of abstraction as a form of painting, um, it's not just completely made up. You know, that she talked about color choices earlier on, but we can also see how it relates to a practice as a textile artist and a practice as a collector. You could with these, I mean, if I ever go to Ulster, I'll often find myself just looking at box after box and just thinking, what is that one, or what did you know? Some of them I'll go, oh my god, that was that day I was there. You know, so some of them I'll recognise as a shared diary as well. You know. But also this is just one wall, and also some walls will be quite empty and you know not empty, but it'll be like one painting or a set of plants or whatever. But others, we can see the way she set out these pieces of work, and actually some of these are mine. That's one of mine. That top one, and that's one of mine. That green female figure. That's a Gustave Doré, and this one is a lovely little framed drawing by a tutor who taught Elsa and who taught me. So it's lovely to see that one there. But we can see by the way she set them out as well, it's the same thing happening. Yeah. So although they're individual pieces of work, it's a collection, and there's these kind of squares are being referenced. That's the lamp that you know she's gone into with different types of textile. So the lamp, you know, I think was originally just a shopboard shape, which she's identified, you know, where she wants different colours, and it starts to become stained glass almost. And then there's other shapes. So this is like a wild sea or something.
Beautiful, yeah.
Yeah,
Amazing, isn't it? Yeah.
fabulous.
That's a little bit of a small. So that's about a foot and a half, probably. And that lives in the same room as that one. So there are relationships in not just inside the painting but outside the painting. So Elsa's interior decor. I mean, this is one of the things. I think we should be contracting her out to do decor, because the sense of color is magnificent. So these ones, these are more bioorganic, possibly, and they remind me of a microscope zoom-ins of cells and slides of little kind of microbes and things like that. Same color balance, but if we zoom in on these, we can see there are beads and things stitched to the canvas as well. So it's abstract painting, but it's also textile. And we can see that, like like this red shape appears to be in front of that green shape, and these white ones may either be in front of them or they may be cuts in the green shape. There's these connections here, like the black connections, which she described, you know, putting colour down and throwing some black at it. But actually, it's really narrative. It's telling us that certain things are linked, or that certain things are connected in some way. So I think that this work is breathtaking. And this one, if you look closely at the screen, you can see that the amount of beadwork and the amount of kind of texture built up by pattern. And again, she talked about this being, you know, for her a process. So what I was asking her was, you know, with a painting like this, how would you know when it was finished? But I think this one strikes that balance perfectly, because it's not overdone, but it's incredibly rich and detailed. Now, I think this is from around the time when COVID was on and lockdown was happening and everything, and it kind of reminds me of a dangerous virus cell or something. Yeah. So maybe I'm reading into that, but it's kind of, this is about, again, maybe about a foot and a half tall. So not as big as the first ones I showed you, but incredibly.
A lot of wall space for all these pieces.
Oh, it's a Georgian flat, and it's not. It's kind, you know. I mean, I've used every last bit of wall space in my flat. So I'm gonna have to stop putting work on the ceiling, I think. When we first moved in, Kev imagined that he was getting this kind of very austere, pared down minimalist New York style loft apartment, and I have turned it into a Byzantine chapel. But Elsa is much more considered, so the way she puts work up, it never looks overdone or cluttered, and she combines it with beautiful kind of one-off antique pieces of furniture that you would never see anywhere else, which just seem to come to her. She beautiful furniture just seems to arrive at Elsa's house and just naturally becomes part of the space. But in terms of the painting, things, I think this one's in the kitchen actually, and you can't really see that. That's not the frame behind it. That's like a kind of beautiful mustard color, not quite ochre, but more warmer than that. Which is just takes up that wall and balances these colors perfectly, because these are all quite cool colors. This is the coffee table that seen from above, that she said she was going to just paint white, because I think she casually said, "Oh, it's had its time now." But it's like it's a real statement piece, when you walk into the room, and that this must be. It's such a big, chunky wooden table. It's low, and it is a coffee table, but it's almost like it must be 1.5 meters by 1.5 meters. So this is bigger than the first paintings I showed you. And this
It's like a quilt, isn't it? On the edge and all
exactly
that.
like that, yeah. I'm glad you said that. There was I was watching a video podcast a couple of weeks ago, and it talked about the relationship between quilt making and abstract painting. And one of the things that it said was that there were a lot of abstract patterns in quilt making which had come from African tribal culture in America, and it was the patterns had survived the American kind of slave trade. So African Americans were in poor communities, were making these quilts, and the original pattern design went right back like 1,000 years to some part of Africa where a tribal design was used again and again. And what the podcast was pointing out was that white American painters were being classed as geniuses for coming up with stuff that actually was happening on a folk level in quilt making in communities just down the road. And because they were black people, it was as if, well, that wasn't as important a form of art. It's not high American abstract expressionism. It's just some patterns. What you can see from this is all done in paint. But you can see there's a very strong relationship actually between textile and paint. And yeah, you're right. It does look quilted. So I hope at some point I could talk her out of painting over this, but that's because I'm really needy and clingy in it, and I like the object itself. Whereas Elsa is committed to the process and will just paint over it and put something else amazing on top of it. So this is a chair just out in the back, where we can see that these patterns and combinations just become part of that. And this isn't stitched. This is she really loves the idea of patchwork. So stitching and patchwork actually comes into the paint. So that's flat and painted on. So it does make sense as part of one thing. Okay, so that's the last of them. I'm just gonna float back through them so you can see them in context of each other. It's like stained glass, isn't it? It's amazing. So she did go through a period of painting mandalas, and we've actually got one of the small green one is on our wall at the moment. I'm just noticing, can we see these black bars here? I think that's being put on as a liquid and allowed to drip, and it's then being rotated and rotated. But I could be wrong because these drips look like they've been hand painted and chosen. So I haven't asked her about that level of detail, but next time I'm at hers, I'm going to say, how did you do that bit? With this change in direction in terms of pattern, there is pictorial space. So I'm seeing here like the crest of a wave and almost like the inner space of the wave. So I'm seeing kind of the way colours tell us stories about what's on top of what's in front of what. But these designs here, you can see it almost like paisley. Those kind of repetitions there. We see these glimpses as well of like Klee and Kandinsky and artists who influence her around the house in amongst other things. And things like, see that massive big safety pin thing? Objects that just, I mean, they look maybe Thai or, Vietnamese or something. And I'm not sure what the beads are, whether they're prayer beads or something, but things like that just crop up as well. And but it's a joy being in the house because the eye doesn't rest. The eye just goes and sees another thing and another thing. It's definitely like an artist's paradise.
Fascinating.
And these are things like that. I remember that day, that tiny little image of the Buddha was when we both met the woman who taught us and Tibetan nun who taught us to meditate. And she gave us these little, she gave me one of Tara and she gave this one of Buddha to Elsa. But there's things like just, like exotic shells or beadwork or, yeah, there's so many, you could never fully describe this stuff. And there are rules as well, like the copper is a warmer tone in terms of color. So it's not only that we know that leafing lives on the surface of something, but visually it appears to be closer to us than the other squares. It's almost like we might see maybe buildings in a field or something.
You know those lines that she uses? Does she use acrylic pen?
No, I think it's mostly brush.
Brush.
And I mean, she may use pen sometimes. I know she's used marker, and one of the things that she used to laugh about was she was kind of really, she loved a gold pen. So where remember in the old flat there was a crack in the wall, or there was something where I mean they are very old Georgian buildings, but there's some damage to the wall, and of course rather than want to paint over it, Elsa says, "Oh, that's beautiful," and went round it with a gold pen to embellish. I mean, even when she had to have her operation in January, and the scar was, was something that anyone else would have been really upset and really kind of worried about, having the scar like that. And she laughed and she said, oh, "I'm going to go around it with a gold pen." So she's kind of like, she's an abstract painter, right to, even to the level of the body. They're just sumptuous, aren't they? They're so beautiful. I think that's like there was a plant in front of it. I think that's like the size of like a daffodil or something like that. Yeah, so you can see that, the actual scale of it.
Is that stuck to the painting?
No, it's just in front of it. So there's she likes to have a lot of lush plants around. So I just managed to cut off the plant at the bottom there, but this isn't like a kind of a gallery shot of it. This is just it on the wall with the room interfering with it. Yeah. So not interfering with it completely. I think the space it's in is important to the object itself. So I don't think this would really work on a white neutral gallery wall in the way it does in the home, because she's got such a strength for interior design and decor. Okay. So I just wanted to show you that work really, because it's interesting when, you know, we've done a few weeks talking about painting and abstraction and how we get there, and we've been and looked at it in galleries and we've discussed and analysed it. But to actually meet someone who does that as a major part of their practice and discusses it so generously, where she'll tell you exactly what she's thinking, and there's no secret. She's not kind of, you know, going, oh, that's my process and I won't tell you about that because you'll copy it. Yeah. She does what she does, and she kind of is quite, you know, quite cool about sharing it, I think. So have we got any responses to that as painting? Does it make sense, or does it help you understand other abstract painting, or what did we think about it?
Well, it does make sense. You can get a feeling of what she's trying to put down with regards to color and her shapes, but obviously, as a not being Elsa, we all have our own interpretation of what she's
Totally,
difficult to put into words, really.
Yeah, I think that's true. We talked a little. Well, we mentioned I did the dominant reading last week. So sometimes when a painter puts something down, or when any artist builds something, they put it out in the world, and they might have intended it to mean a particular thing, and to them it's really obvious. You know, if it seems like, well, you know, it means this or it means that. But if essentially, if everybody else outvotes them, if everybody else thinks a different thing, and the whole world thinks, well, we think it's about this, there's really only one person voting to say, you know, well, maybe it's not. Yeah. So the dominant reading is kind of what most people read from something. But I think those tools that we're starting to look at, like using the formal elements to analyze, they start to open up a language where we can really look at any work and start to interpret it, or start to think about it. And even just that learning that I'm passed on to you guys is helping me, because I look at Elsa's work and look at my work and I think, right, so I'm not using pattern, and I'm not using, there's formal elements missing from my work because I'm not doing things that Elsa's doing.
Yeah.
I enjoyed it very much, this abstraction. I learned a lot. Yeah.
Yeah, it's a crazy.
There's a lot of thought in it, and experiment, and you know, it's good.
It's not what we think originally, is it? And I know numbers have been pretty low over the last couple of weeks. So I don't know whether some people found it a bit intimidating, because it is intimidating.
I found it really interesting.
Yeah.
And excited. I really enjoyed it. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, I'm glad about that, because I think when numbers are low, the first thing I think is everybody hates the work, nobody likes it. Well, I know a lot of people are away. I don't think a lot of people are ill, and there's all kinds of stuff going on. But yeah, when you next go to Elsa's class, I think when she's doing Alma Klimt as an abstract painter quite soon as one of her classes, you'll understand her not just as someone who's kind of come in to talk about others' work, but someone who makes this work herself and is you know, profoundly layered in terms of the amount of practice that she's put in. And she was on my course, so she's been doing this as long as I have. Yeah. Except she just went in that design direction, whereas I went in a fine arts direction. It's mad when you know someone. I don't know whether you're on speaker view there, so I don't know whether I'm a little person at the top or whether I'm a big screen. But I'm just if I turn my so can you see this cushion?
Yes.
Elsa,
Yes.
yeah. So Elsa made that for us.
Yeah.
You can see up there. There's a bound stone tied to a canvas, and that's one of Elsa's. I'm pretty sure that's one of Elsa's as well. I think that might have been a birthday present with Kev. And this one up here, we can see this mandala, the green one.
Yes.
So that's one of Elsa's as well. So
Beautiful list.
it's amazing, isn't it? Yeah.
Yeah.
In fact, I'll show you one more, because she knows what my work's about. So this is Elsa's Saint Sebastian cushion for me.
Oh. Yeah.
So yes, I'd love to.
You're a fan, aren't you?
I just think the work is amazing, and it's I'm really privileged to have some of it in my house. What I'd like to do is as well, at some point, probably not straight away, but I'd like to do an interview with Karen as well and talk about Karen's work, which is completely different. And I'd like to do an interview with Andrea and talk about Andrea's work, so we can get all of the current tutors to have a conversation about what they're doing and why it's different to what the others are doing. I'll definitely try and call up Paul and talk about his painting, particularly when we're coming up to this exhibition that we're doing, because the one that Paul and I are involved in is called Five, and it's every 5 years and it's 5 artists. So Kirby Gallery are quite keen to explain that this is the practice of 5 completely different painters. So the other is a lad who does amazing landscape, and like it's all about light. There's nighttime landscapes and landscapes with the sun setting and all kinds of richness. There's a woman who's doing amazing stuff about her own garden. So that's very pattern based and very, very kind of very warm and positive. Then there's there's my stuff, which you've probably seen. So this is so this is the current big massive so that's a 7-footer, and there's another 7-footer behind it, and then there's an 8-footer on the way as well. But we can see that the work is absolutely different. So each one of us has got an approach. And I suppose my work, the reason why I'm doing that is because the previous project, the project about Tenebrism and about Baroque and Caravaggio and all those things, that's where I'm coming from for this. Now, if we've got time, I just would really like to show you one more thing. I'm not sure it's going to let me on this. Not even sure. Okay. Let's try it. Okay, so I'm going to go into there's an article on Facebook I wanted to show you. Okay, so it's doing something. There we go. So, has anyone seen this? Anyone recognize this? It went viral last year, and it was at it's a robot which is not dissimilar to the kind of robots that they have in car kind of production plants. So it's that scale. It's about kind of 9 foot tall or so, and it's inside a not a cage, but it's inside a perspex room, so it can be seen from all sides. And what it's doing is it's trying to sweep up this red liquid. It's trying to collect it to the middle, and to put it. Basically, it's got like a runnel underneath, and if it manages to pull the liquid towards it, it goes back inside it. It's actually a hydraulic fluid that keeps it alive. So it's a piece of work about this thing leaking, this thing bleeding, and the hydraulic fluid didn't need to be red, but it was done deliberately that way. So showing you this as a kind of when we looked at the last paintings, we talked about modernism, and then I said, why did we stop at the 50s? And actually, it's because we modernism stopped, so postmodernism came after that, and we'll do that's probably in a couple of months. We'll do a little mention of postmodernism, what that is. But it's kind of where storytelling starts to come back in after abstraction. It's got many different kind of really good definitions, but we could think about it as a way that something that that looks very kind of contemporary and sometimes really outlandish, but it's telling us a story. So it's about something. So I'm just going to read out what the post said about this. So, not my photo or my words, but this helps to understand. No piece of art has ever emotionally affected me the way this robot arm piece has. It's programmed to try to contain the hydraulic fluid that constantly leaks out and is required to keep itself running. If too much escapes, it will die. So it's desperately trying to pull back to continue to fight for another day. The saddest part is they gave the robot the ability to do these happy dances for spectators. When the project was first launched, it danced around, spent the most of its time interacting with the crowd, since it could quickly pull back the small spillage. Some years later, as you can see now in the video, it looks tired and hopeless, as there isn't enough time to dance anymore. It now only has enough time to try to keep itself alive, as the amount of leaked hydraulic fluid became unmanageable as the spill grew over time. Living its last days in a never-ending cycle between sustaining life and simultaneously bleeding out, figuratively and literally as the hydraulic fluid was purposely made to look like actual blood. The robot arm finally ran out of hydraulic fluid in 2019, slowly came to a halt and died.
So that's a story.
It's quite a thing, isn't it? So yeah, it goes on to say spectators watched as it slowly bled out until the day it ceased to move forever, saying that this resonates doesn't even do it justice. So it's by two Chinese artists, Sun Yuang and Peng Yu. They named the piece "Can't Help Myself." So extended interpretations of the hydraulic fluid in relation to how we kill ourselves both mentally and physically for money, just in an attempt to sustain life. How the system is set up for us to fail on purpose, to essentially enslave us and steal the best years of our life, to play the game that the richest people in the world have designed. How this robs us of our happiness, passion, and inner peace. How we're slowly drowning with more responsibilities and more expected of us, less reward and payoffs, and less free time to enjoy ourselves as the years go by. There's no escaping the system, and what we're destined to at birth is to follow a pretty specific path that was already laid out before us. So that's a lot to say about essentially a robot sweeping up red liquid. But it was designed, it did have a visual software on it, and it could identify when people were outside the glass box. So when as it said, when it was first made, it was designed to dance for people. So it would do spins and flip over and and do all kinds of things. And gradually, as the pool spread and as more and more of it got splashed onto, we can even see it on the walls, and we can see it quite just far enough away that it can't reach it. You can see it becomes an increasingly impossible task for it to do. And gradually, as they said, the robot died. And it's a piece of metal. It's got no consciousness, no soul. No, it might be programmed to see when people are there and to respond in a certain way, but it's not feeling things in the way that people feel things. But when was one of the most viral pieces of art ever recorded. So it was shared millions and millions of times. And there's lots of video clips of it on YouTube doing its thing. So I wonder if we can find it.
Sorry, what was that called? I missed that bit.
It's called "I Can't Help Myself." So.
Right.
this is it. So this is what it kind of moves like, and what it was doing.
It's
So
not shared.
what are you saying, Sharon? Sorry,
We can't see the.
Did that not come up? Right. Okay.
No, it hasn't come up.
That's a shame, because it was such a short clip anyway. But I'll try and figure a way. So let me just. Nothing's where I expect it to be. I can't get out of it. I knew there was going to be some technical glitch, but I think we got through that relatively well, but without technical glitch. But
It's in YouTube, is it? Yeah.
in YouTube, yeah. So if you look up, so the artist is Sun Yuan and Peng Yu, and it's called "Can't Help Myself." And of course, there's a song called "Can't Help Myself," so that's not what you're looking at. But I just put "Can't Help Myself" robot, and it did it for me.
Yeah.
Okay. So on Mac, it doesn't. It's just, I don't even think I can get out of this. That's me back in Zoom. So yeah, it's a postmodern piece about the robot that sweeps up or tries to keep itself from bleeding to death, and it's very. But the first time I saw this about a year ago, I cried when I saw it, because I don't understand how an artist can make a piece of car plant machinery so empathic that you feel heartbroken for it to see it do its thing. Yeah. I wonder, it might just. Okay, can you see that?
Yes.
Yeah.
Let's try that then. So I'm figuring this out as I go along. So there's actually clips of it that are that are really long, and there's footage of its last day, where it was moving so slowly because it just couldn't get enough of the liquid back inside it to carry on. Apparently, the artist at the very end, the artist came in, they couldn't reach the liquid anymore. The artist came in and unplugged it, and that was almost like a kind of a reference to how we have to. Whatever. So that's a whole other type of storytelling. But we'll look at postmodernism probably in about a month or so. But the next thing coming up, we're going to do a project about sketchbook. So I would suggest that for everyone, a new sketchbook for this project, probably a hardback one. And we're going to think about the design process, think about all those types of things like research and drawing, and so it's going to be much more of a drawing project. But we'll see where we get with it. So that'll be starting on Monday, and I'll inform people and spread the word about that a little bit.
So we need to bring a new sketchbook.
Yeah, and I'd say probably a hardback one, and ideally like kind of A4 or a square equivalent to A4. So something big enough that you can actually draw and work in it. and it's going to state, you know, not the kind of sketchbook we pull pages out of. It's going to be a book as a record. So I'll email out about that, and I'll put it on the WhatsApp group as well. Most of those sketchbooks are, you know, kind of between 7 and you know, and 12 quid. So you're looking about that scale for a sketchbook. Okay, so I'm quite proud of myself for having understood how Mac works to the extent where we only had one minor technical hitch, and I can actually screen share everything on it, and the sound is better on it. So I will really get the hang of this machine, and I'll be. I think the Zoom should be better from now on, hopefully.
The sound is much better.
That's what I was hoping, yeah, because I know every week people have struggled with it, and I know when I've recorded it, and you know, the one thing I don't know about Mac is when it records, when it's I come out of this session and it says convert and recording, where on earth it's going to put it on the machine? So it might not go straight up onto YouTube today. I might have to struggle to find it. But once it's done, you know, I'll put it up and it should be normal again. So thank you for coming along today, because I wanted to tell you about a really cool abstract painter, and I wanted to show you a machine bleeding to death. Because those things make sense to me.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
So yeah, hopefully that this, and if you encourage the others as well, because I know this will go on, it'll go on Patreon, it'll go on YouTube. So if people kind of want to see this again, or didn't make it and want to see it, just send them the link and let them have a look at it.
Should we bring our finished cubist paintings next week?
Yeah, I mean, that would be a great kind of opening 10 minutes, just to have a look at where we got with that. So yeah, I think that would be a good start as well.
Okay.
Okay.
Right, thanks, Curtis.
Thank you.
See you soon.
Bye-bye.
Bye.